This is the Q&A portion of the program now. We've got, is it a couple of microphones that we've got in the audience? We've got a couple of microphones that can be available. What I will ask, because we've got a busy room here, Megan and they'll want to be able to see, we've got one mic, okay? So Megan, she's got red shoes too, good work. If you've got a question, please hold your hand up. Megan will find you, but please don't ask your question until the mic arrives so we can all get the benefit of the full context of your question. Prerogative of the moderator is I get to start, and they gave me dispensation to start with a hard question. So I'm going to start with a hard question. I'm going to, I'm going to put it to Michael because, yeah, I knew it, yeah, just because you're from Toronto. No, I want to put it, there's one word that hasn't been used yet in this discussion. I was waiting for it to come, and I was waiting just to see how uncomfortable it would make us and how you would answer it. So I'm going to use it. What do you say when someone says, oh, Michael, your job is to find tokens? Yeah. See, we all feel a bit queasy. That question was asked of my own parents when they got here. It's a real question that's still asked today. Oh, you're the token blank. How does that make you feel? What should we know about that word?
Oh, wow. Haven't I suffered enough as a Torontonian? Mayor Ford. Okay. Clearly that's not working anymore. Yeah, tokenism. It's such a wretched concept. For a long time, I thought I was the token gay. I'm gay. Just, if you didn't notice the hands flailing around when I was talking. And I worked at KPMG, the accounting firm, and I was the only gay in the village. And there was this sense of tokenism that, we have a gay. Isn't that good? We have a gay. I think employers need to look for talent. They need to look for the best person for the job. And so my response to them is, no, you don't go and find a brown guy. What you do is find the best person for the job. Expect and accept that the best person for the job might be a brown guy. And the question is, can that person succeed in your organization? Do they have the same opportunity? Or are you sending them into a work environment that is going to be hostile towards them, where they're going to hear racist comments, homophobic comments, whatever, insert blank. So it's as was said earlier, you have to make sure that the work environment is inclusive and welcoming. You can't just go out and say, hey, we're going to go hire a whole bunch of Aboriginal people. If it's not the right place for them, they'll just be walking out the back door. You have to make sure, though, that everyone has the same opportunity to succeed, regardless of the factors that make them different, and just about the things that make them good at their job.
Thanks for taking that on. All right. We've got the mic open. If you've got a question, please raise your hand and Megan will find you. Lots of great experience and talent and intellect on our panel. Who's got a question? We've got one here. I happen to know that's Amashni Reddy, who works for the Calgary Public Library. So Amashni, stand up and ask your question, please.
A little bit of a preamble before I ask my question, and kind of all ties in. Foreign credential recognition, Canadian experience, and excluding skilled immigrants in positions of leadership positions have been and still continue to pose barriers for employment and promotion of skilled immigrants. On July 15, the Ontario High Commission affected a new policy where asking for Canadian experience is a no-go and no-no, and it's a human rights violation. So experience should be experience, regardless of the geography from where you got it. So that should be experience. So my question is, We've heard from Bruce, the brilliant rock stars that come into the country. We've heard from Mayor Nenshi, go back to your HR departments and tell them don't ask for Canadian experience. We've heard from Debbie about the brilliant recruitment strategy at Shell. So my question is, what can we do as organizations and as employers to not have these three and other elements dictate to us and be the deciding factor of how we should employ immigrants? So what can we do? What can we take away? And how can we impact and enrich our organizations?
Karen looks like she wants to take this on. Go ahead, Karen.
One of them is, in my experience, has been to broaden the HR department and the recruitment and interviewing panel, because oftentimes hiring the best person, if it's I'm going to say, white male, they tend to hire like and make an assumption that that's the best qualified person. But a diverse panel starts to look at it in a slightly different way, and collectively, I think we'll come up with something that looks more like and is the best qualified person. So it's really human resources that needs to start that, and I've experienced that with trying to recruit Aboriginal people, and they're saying, well, no one applied. And I say, well, give me your B list. You've sorted the resumes, and here's the A's. There's no Aboriginal people, but it's an Aboriginal position. And guess what? They're all in the B group. And how come they didn't get there?
Bruce, this is right in your wheelhouse. Maybe I'll get you to comment on that.
I mean, yeah, there's a slightly nuanced thing, and I understand what the question was. I mean, I think we're all faced with that question. One of the things that when we work with our international talent, we say that every Canadian had a survival job. I worked for 6 years in a pulp and paper mill. It taught me I did not want to work in a pulp and paper mill. But I think we've all got those stories. We all face that story. So what's your experience? What's your Canadian experience is just a lazy way of trying to eliminate people. And so when we work with our international talent, we work on strategies to avoid that. So it's all about core competencies at the end of the day. And so my problem-solving ability as a geologist in Romania, I think still holds when I crossed the border. I didn't leave my IQ anywhere. I didn't drop any books. I worked with a fellow from India, and he painted this great visual. He said, I landed in Calgary. I had 2 suitcases. Did not have clothes in them, did not have books, did not have pictures of mom and dad. I had 2 suitcases full of transferable skills, and I asked the custom agent to point me in the right direction. And I thought to myself, that's the answer. That is the answer. So it's behavioral changes, as Karen says, within the HR department, but it's also helping folks understand the talents that they have. They have this there's a set of core competencies, this experience, this passion set, and how do you formulate that? How do you frame that? We all work with, all of us here are probably mentors, and it's the same language I use with my own 19 and 21-year-old. I teach over at Haskayne. I do the same thing with 4th and 5th year students. I work with Aboriginal students and Aboriginal executives in my Aboriginal community work, and it's the same conversation. It's a question of articulating yourself. Who are you? I don't really I've never talked to employers who actually ask that question. I think at a certain level that doesn't make any sense. But behavioral changes inside, and then as well working with folks outside to be able to really present yourself as you are, and you are this great collection of a whole bunch of things, and Canadian experience tends to kind of then be sort of a question that doesn't make any sense. It almost becomes an irrelevant question at that point in time.
All right. Other questions from the audience? Megan's got the microphone. I will say about the Canadian experience question, the way I like to put it is there's no experience more Canadian than to be given a chance. That's the kind of Canada that I think a lot of us want. There's a question at the back. Sir.
Gary Woods with the Calgary Police Service. I currently work with the Caribbean and Latin American community in Calgary. My question is changing the culture within organizations. It's all very well having hiring policies, talking about HR, and the way Calgary is changing and who we should be hiring in line with the demographic changes, but how do we get that diversity into the organization of existing people who maybe have been there long before this was the hot topic?
Deborah, speak to that. You work for an oil company that's been around for many generations, and you're obviously trying to make a change within that company.
Yeah,
How do you do that?
So I can speak, can you hear me?
Can you turn that up a little bit, please? Thanks.
So at Shell, in the work that I do, when I first started doing this work, it was challenging to make that change, to get the workforce more diversified, and it really was a lot about education and awareness again, and doing that sell to that hiring manager that perhaps didn't have any diversity on his team, and what's in it for him. You know, why should he consider having a diverse candidate, and what value does that bring to that team? We all know it's the diverse perspectives. I like your purple analogy. That was great. To get that purple perspective on the team that you don't have. So I think in the beginning, it really is what business need does it meet to sell the diversity. And then it happens, you know, organically as you continue to have education and awareness in the organization. You start to have these diverse candidates in the company making change and adding value and being seen. That helps make that change too.
Let me take that a step further and push that. If it's the question is for this hiring manager, what's in it for him? Should there be incentives? Should there actually be a bottom line on somebody's paycheck if they manage to hire and get people closer? What do you think?
So at Shell, we do have some expectations on employee performance for certain levels of managers, as far as you know, you're expected to add to the company's diversity policies and strategies. And how do you demonstrate that in your performance? So,
I wouldn't say that there should be an incentive to go hire the brown guy. But if you as an organization have determined that you want to be representative of the community that you serve, and that's all you can do, really. That's all you can hope for. You know, if you go to Fort Mac and everybody's white, you can't hope to hire the brown guy. But at the same time, it has to connect to the pocketbook. And if this is it's a nice to do, then it'll be the first thing that falls off when the economy goes in the toilet. But if it's part of your business strategy, then there should be a goal around it. And it should absolutely affect compensation. I don't think it's as simple as, well, how many people have you hired? It's how many people have you hired, how many people have you promoted, how long is the retention rate? You know, it's all of those statistics put together.
Other questions from the crowd? Some of you work in this area. Some of you want to develop your own organizations. This is a great panel to ask your even how-to questions. Okay, well, being conscious of time, I'm going to ask one more question because Jim Button's in the room and his beer's getting warm. We can't be goofing around, right, Jim? All right, I'm gonna end, and this is a question that I would like everybody on the panel to take a quick go at. We all recognize that there's a gap. There's a gap when it comes to at the senior leadership levels of organizations, whether it comes to diversity around, the composition of gender or disability or color or whatever you may say. There's obviously a gap. The statistics are telling that. If you could zero in on one obstacle and one solution to really making a change at the highest levels of organizations in Calgary, what would that obstacle be and what would your fix be? It's a complicated question, but everybody can have a go. Let's start with Bruce.
I would say, quite simply, provide the opportunity, provide the recipe for success. So have a well-governed organization, which means that if there's some diversity training that has to happen, whatever has to happen, make sure that the recipe for success is there, and then nurture that person with the right kind of mentoring, with the right kind of support, and I think that it's going to work. I mean, when I helped co-found a mentoring program for Aboriginal post-secondary students, and I was sitting down with some elders, and one of the very first questions I had was this something we should be concerned about, something we should be doing? And Marie looked at me and she said, you know, Bruce, really what it has to do with is diversity is not a box you check off. Diversity is a recipe for success. And that's truly what it is. So you provide the opportunity, because the candidates are there. In every talent pool that you can think of, great candidates are there. But before you provide that opportunity, make sure that your organization is ready, and have conversations with others who can tell you if you're ready, and if you're not ready, what can you do to get ready. And then take a chance. Bring somebody in, and you will not be disappointed.
Karen, how do we close that gap?
Well, we start building relationships, you know. Why would I want to go to work if I don't see anyone that looks like me or is welcoming? And that's when you start to see organizations with big turnover. And boy, does that affect the bottom line if you have that kind of turnover. So to the gentleman from the police service, you know, building those relationships so that you start to change the attitudes and beliefs about what the police means, and you start to see it as, you know, a career option.
Karen, if we do this right, you'll be out of a job, so there's that. What do you think? What's the biggest obstacle and the best strategy to get more senior leaders of diversity in your organization?
Yeah, so I was asked actually by our CEO of Canada, where are my Aboriginal leaders in the company? I don't see any leaders that are Native. I said, well, they're there. There's a difference between natural-born leaders and developed, trained leaders. They're probably standing behind the person that's in front of your face, bragging. So the lesson there was that the management needs to be culturally aware. So maybe they have to invest a little more training, development. They have to seek out those natural-born leaders in the organization and just be aware that there is differences, and perhaps your policy of development in the company is not for everyone. Everyone should not follow that same policy. So that's what I would say.
Michael, last word to you.
I think one of the biggest barriers to success is middle managers, or what I like to call the frozen middle. And that's not meaning any disrespect to middle managers, but 9 times out of 10, they're just trying to get through the day. And you've got great, buy-in at the top, and you've got great energy at the grassroots level, and they meet in the frozen middle. And that's the biggest barrier. I think the key to success in turning that tide is education and answering one question, and that's what's in it for me. Because at the end of the day, if the middle manager understands how diversity will benefit them, then they become the advocate for change. If they just think it's another thing to do, it's not going anywhere.
Great. Thank you very much to all our panelists. Let's give them a hand.